Welcome to another DragonLance Saga review episode. It is Misham Brook Green the 10th. My name is Adam, and today I'm going to give you my spoiler review of Into the Void. This is the second in the Cloakmaster cycle. It starts off with the DragonLance novel, basically called Beyond the Moons, and it takes our hero, Teldin Moore of Calaman, into space and to other planets and trying to uncover this mystery. Anyway, I'd like to take a moment and thank the members of this YouTube channel and invite you to consider becoming a member by visiting the links in the description below. You can always pick up DragonLance gaming materials by using my affiliate link also in the description. If you have opinions about this that differ from mine or sharply contrast with mine, let me know. I'd love to hear them. Put your comments in the chat, or if you're watching this after the fact, go ahead and leave them in the comments below the actual video. I'll get back to you and other people will be able to see it. And we'll have a nice healthy back and forth about these novels, which seem to be pretty good so far. Like, surprisingly good. I didn't even think I was going to like them, and I kind of dig them. So it's a happy accident there. All right, so anyway, this is a spoiler review of Into the Void by Nigel Findley. If you don't want to know the story, don't watch this video. Go read the book, come back, and then watch it, and we can sort of geek out a little bit together. That being said, the way these work is I give you my pre-written review, which is basically a synopsis with my thoughts interlaced. And then afterwards, we just sort of have a bit of a chat about it, just sort of riff on different ideas or themes or characters or whatever. It's Thursday. I've got nothing else going on, so let's have some fun. How about that? Zach, thanks for joining. You finished the book. You really enjoyed it. Awesome. Okay. Well, I enjoyed it too, so let's get into it. We pick up with Teldin Moore of Calaman aboard the gnome's dreadnought, the Unquenchable, when he's approached by the gnome Horvath, who makes friends with him very quickly. Horvath tells Teldin that they are headed to Devis in a sphere called Path Space, when he's called by Captain Wydor. Now, the captain wants him to inspect the Unquenchable, so Horvath takes the longboat out with Teldin and three gnomes, Dana, Miggins, and Salaman. Suddenly, three wasps appear. Now, wasps are just a form of a ship, just like Dreadnought is a form of a ship. They're actually pirates, and they begin attacking the Unquenchable, which angles away in order to engage them. The longboat, however, is abandoned in space. So one of the wasps is damaged and leaves the fight only to engage the longboat. Teldin is forced to attack with a crossbow and is aided by his cloak with calm and precision. The wasp ship is eventually fought off by an incoming hammer ship called the Probe. The gnome was wounded in the battle with the wasp. I'm sorry, one gnome was. And the Unquenchable is now nowhere to be seen, so they are literally helpless floating in space. So they're helped aboard the Probe by a human named Aelfred Silverthorn of Toril. He is the Probe's first mate. Teldin asks about the captain, and an Illithid named Estrus meets him, freaking Teldin out. And he actually meets him with a little kobold that he's sort of like patting the head of as if it were like Mr. Evil's cat or something. And then he like goes on to have like this long conversation about how he needs live creatures under his thrall so he can eat their brains. Because that's what Illithids eat. They eat brains. Super gross. A little bit Hannibal Lecter, right? But it's really funny that he's literally carting around his food with him just to keep it fresh. And super gross. Anyway, that really freaks out Teldin. So it communicates in his mind and vocally, and it quickly ends up calming Teldin's nerves. It turns out that Estrus, the captain, is a historian searching for artifacts and information about a lost civilization called the Juna. The Probe is on its way to Toril, to a town called Routhaven, for an auction that may contain some artifacts of the Juna, this ancient civilization. It turns out that an ancient species of 3 Krynn traveled the universe millennia before Illithids or humans ever did, and they actually spoke of an even older society called the Juna. So that's where all this interest comes in. The ship is attacked by a black space shark called a Void Scaver, which kills one man, wounds another, and then Teldin steps in, again calmed by his cloak and focused by it, and then he slices it with a sword, He ends up getting wounded in the process, but ultimately defeats the creature. Now everyone is amazed, including Estrus, who believes that the cloak is somehow connected to the Juna that he's researching. The ship then leaves Krynnspace, and they enter the Phlogiston, or the Flow, also known as the Rainbow Ocean. As it appears, you flow through in a multicolored bubble through space. So the ship sets schedules for all aboard. I feel like this needs a little explanation. So in Spelljammer, each campaign world is surrounded by what they call a sphere. And these spheres all float through space called the Phlogiston, right? But you also have something called the wild space, which is all of the space within the sphere. So ostensibly, the way I look at it is you have your galaxy, which is the Phlogiston, and then you have your spheres, which are your solar systems, basically. And that's where each of these campaign worlds, they're all a part of this solar system of their own with planets and stuff, just like Krynn is too. I'm actually doing a video on it. This is going to be released on Tuesday. This is my DragonLance setting video for the week. And it's going to break down a pretty good primer about Krynnspace specifically. Anyway, the ship sets schedules for all aboard, and for a time, things seem to be normal as they can be on a ship floating through space. Aelfred even begins teaching Teldin how to fight with a short sword in their spare time. Then the Void Reaper, a Neogi Death Spider ship, begins to approach. The battle for survival of Probe is an intense one. The Neogi send their Umber Hulks and slaves to fight on their behalf, and they kill and wound many of the Probe's seamen and women. Teldin finds himself fighting for his life, and the cloak once again comes to his aid, exploding out against this adverse adversary. Those who witness it believe him to actually be a warrior mage from here on out. Aelfred is confused about how Teldin fought so well after he was showing him how to fight with a short sword, and he wasn't doing so well, and how he was even able to use magic. And with Estrus suggesting that Teldin tell Aelfred everything, he then goes ahead and tells him the entire backstory. So after the battle, Teldin sleeps for about 24 hours and wakes to have a long talk and experiment with the cloak's magic with Estrus. So it turns out that this cloak actually drains him when he uses its power because he's unaccustomed to tapping into its power. And so this little meet and greet between Estrus is him learning how to actually channel the cloak's power. And he doesn't get very far, but he does learn a pretty interesting trick. So Teldin learns how to change his features and body shape-shifting into other peoples that he's met. This process takes less and less of his energy, and he is slowly unlocking the cloak's secret. So that is a huge plot point for him because it not only leads into everything to come, but it's also going to allow him to attempt to hide from the Neogi, who seem to be the only ones at this point trying to find this cloak. So they finally enter Realmspace, which is Forgotten Realms sphere, and Teldin is growing more fond of space in general. They see a ship spinning out of control and move to intercept and investigate it. They find a woman on board named Rihanna Wyvernsbane. She's a messenger who barely survived an assault and was doomed if it weren't for the probe just happening to come by. What we find quickly in this novel is that there's a whole lot of coincidences out in open space that end up not being coincidences. Which then, to Teldin, who doesn't know any better, he doesn't know anything about space travel. He's a farmer on Krynn. What does he know about it? So it all seems coincidental to him, but he doesn't think anything nefarious about it. But the truth is, it's all pretty nefarious. People rely on his ignorance in order to get one over on him. Anyway, all of the males on board ended up smitten with this woman that they rescued, and Estrus and Aelfred convinced Teldin to actually force him to change his features pretty much permanently anytime that this woman is on board, just in case she's not who she claims to be. Now, after a month of traveling to Routhaven, because again, they're traveling through space, and the only way that you can do something similar like warp speed or hyperspace is by hitting these specific waves in currents in the Phlogus. I forgot what it's called already. The Phlogosphere? I don't know what it's called. Phlogiston. I don't know. in space. You have to like hit these existing currents of space-time that move quicker. Otherwise, you're just sort of drifting at the speed of your Spelljammer itself, which isn't that fast, which is why it takes like a month to get out of Krynnspace and then a month from entering Realmspace to get to Toril. Teldin and Rhianna become affectionately close. She takes him out onto a local pub once they dock and spend the night together, after Teldin finally admits the truth about himself and apologizes to her for their deception. They return to the probe, hoping that Estrus has information about the arcane. So basically what happened is he and Estrus have been talking about this cloak, and Teldin admits to Estrus everything. He's like, look, I don't know who the creators are, but that's who I was told to give this cloak to. Estrus believes that maybe it's that Juna that he's searching for, because it seems like it would be this ancient design. But there's a species called the Arcane, and there's one in particular that should be at the auction that they're headed to in Forgotten Realms in Routhaven. So Estrus the Illithid is going to try to find information about how to contact this arcane, while Teldin and Rhianna went off and, partied it up. So anyway, they get back and ask Estrus about whether he got the information. He was like, oh yeah, not really. I know that he has a handler. And so ultimately, Teldin wants to move on with his life, but he's kind of getting used to this spacefaring lifestyle. And so he's not even sure at this point whether or not he wants to get rid of the cloak, whether he ever wants to return to Krynn, and whether or not he should just become a part of this crew forever. The problem is all this weight of all these people dying based on the Neogi trying to find this cloak, and it just doesn't sit well with his conscience. And so he really just wants to get rid of it, and that's why they're searching for the arcane. So he's finding himself more and more wary about abandoning this new life that he's discovered. Teldin ends up contacting the arcane's representative and lying to the dude, trying to get his way into a meeting with the arcane, whose name is T-K-Peck. So Tikapek, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's really weird. It's an alien name. I'm going to say Tikapek. So taking Estrus in disguise and Aelfred with him, Estrus has this really great hat that, turns him into a regular human-looking creature rather than like a Cthulhu, Illithid. So he takes them with him, and also Teldin is disguised, of course. And they're transported to the arcane's ship, and he meets with the tall blue alien. He claims that the cloak, the alien, was made by an arcane, and even offers to buy it for some incredible sums of gold. But Teldin suddenly doesn't really trust him. He's asking him questions like, well, what type of power would these cloaks have that your people supposedly made? And the guy was being super shady and vague and not specific, and Teldin was like, maybe this guy didn't actually make it, even though there are patterns that are reflected in the arcane's own accessories, like his ring, for example. Patterns that are found on the cloak that are also on the arcane's ring, which are supposed to be cultural symbols of the arcane. But then Estrus was saying that they're cultural symbols of the Juna. So who knows what's real, right? But we do know now that the arcane is insistent about getting this cloak somehow. So now we have the arcane that are after, and we have the Neogi that are after it. It gets more convoluted. All right, so knowing that he can always contact the arcane again if he really wanted to get rid of it, he decides to not sell it and just move about his life. So assuming the arcane can even unclasp the cloak, we also discover that one of the slaves from the Neogi ship that was taken aboard the probe seems to be spying on them, sending information to his masters. Now, Estrus, Alfred, Rhianna, and Teldin all attend the auction where the arcane, Tikapek, buys the dagger Estrus had wanted for an obscene amount of gold. Tikapek is insanely wealthy. I don't know why or how. It never really goes into it. It's just that's who and what he is. And it really pissed off Estrus because it was this really great Juna dagger that he already has the other pair of. So he was trying to get the whole pair. So Estrus stays with Aelfred to watch for other items as Bereb, who is the arcane's late representative, approaches Teldin after Tikapek left, saying that the arcane wants to see him about the cloak. New information had come to light. So Teldin and Rhianna end up leaving with him and are led right into a trap into an alley where a bunch of sellswords are waiting to kill them and take the cloak from him. Barab had been fired from the Arcane and sold his services and knowledge to the Mind Flayers of Falks. So now Teldin can't trust Estrus, who is an Illithid, a Mind Flayer, because he may be a part of this other group. He's like, how are they in Krynnspace? He's finally putting stuff together. How was Estrus in Krynnspace just happened to be there when the Neogi attacked, or when the pirates attacked, in order to rescue me? And then how was Rhianna there when we were there to rescue her suddenly? And then the Arcane, how did he happen to be on the one place that Estrus was happening to go to? And he also really wants it. Like, is this just a huge conspiracy of all these different groups wanting to take this cloak from me? These are his questions. So Teldin barely escapes with Rhianna's aid, and then they split up, hiding in the streets. They eventually meet up at the docks after Teldin was told by a former ship hand, a wizard, an elf from the probe, that the cloak is actually elven in make, and he should seek out the elves on Toril for information on it. At this point, Teldin has no idea who to trust. I have this huge typo of the dude's name in here. That sucks. So, do the elves, did they craft it, or do they just want it? Did the Neogi want it, or did they craft it? Did the Juna, if they even exist as a species, craft it? Do they want it? Do the Illithids from Falks, did they craft it, or do they want it? Do the Arcane craft it, or do they want it? There's so many different groups who are trying to get their grubby little mitts on this doggone cloak. Now, once he gets back with Rhianna and some of her own sellswords, they arrive at the probe, pleading with Aelfred for help. Teldin now thinks Estrus is with the Falks group looking for the cloak and convinces Aelfred to help him mutiny. They end up taking the ship against Estrus's wishes to the Arcane's ship, only to discover the Arcane is dead. And Rhianna is working with the Neogi, luring Teldin to the ship, and her sellswords are all working with her in order to get the cloak for the Neogi. Estrus sort of loses his mind and attacks the Neogi representative. Teldin ends up using the cloak to blast the entire room with this weird light force effect, and ends up smashing the Neogi and Estrus into the I guess you would call it like the windshield of the spaceship or something, which breaks open, then they fall out, seemingly to their death, but we never actually see a body, so who knows? Maybe that's in the next book. Dang it, I just lost my place and I didn't mark it. He fights Rhianna and eventually defeats her, though she's killed by Aelfred. And now, between the Neogi, the Falks, the Arcane, and the Elves, Teldin has no idea what to do or who to trust. Aelfred offers him the first mate position aboard the probe, as he is the only friend that Teldin has at this point, and they sail off into the void, ending the book. This was a great, entertaining second novel, though it would be nice to have been given anything that's verifiable about this doggone cloak. We're right back to where we started at the end of the first novel, and that's a bit frustrating. I had a lot of fun with the friendship dynamic between Aelfred and Teldin. I really enjoyed the supposed relationship between Teldin and Rhianna, and it was really nice having Rhianna sort of prove to be this wicked woman who just literally, through magic, charmed him and then used him in order to, finish this job that she was doing. Though I do feel he's starting to become a little bit too much like Captain Kirk. Each novel, he has a new love interest that ends up not really going anywhere except for the time that they're together. I also don't feel like I learned anything about Forgotten Realms in this. The whole purpose, like the back of the book jacket, has the Forgotten Realms logo and it's like they're traveling to Toril and whatever. It's only in the last third of the book that they even get there. And then it's only Routhaven as this tiny little experience that, I don't know. And I don't know if I'm a little too connected to Dragonlance. But that first Spelljammer novel was a Dragonlance novel. It was not a Spelljammer novel. It felt so Dragonlance the whole time. This second one, it felt like a Spelljammer novel because it was all in space, except for the very, very last few chapters. And then it certainly didn't feel Forgotten Realms. So I don't know if it was because of just my connection to Dragonlance or my lack of a connection with Forgotten Realms, but I don't know. I didn't feel it at all. It was really weird. Anyway, it fell flat for me, that part of it. I am curious where it's going to go next, and I actually do want to keep reading this series. It's very interesting to me. So what we see here in this picture is the Illithid. That's Estrus behind him doing his little like Nosferatu pose. In the very front with the cloak, that's Teldin Moore of Calaman. And then sitting in that chair is the Arcane, Tikapek. And who doesn't have as big a role as I thought he would have had. And Estrus's whole supposed, like, turning against Teldin didn't really lead anywhere. And speaking about another aspect of the book that was leading into it the whole time, suggesting stuff that never left anywhere, was this slave that they took aboard their boat that was once a Neogi slave, who was like Teldin kept seeing in all these different places. So he was convinced he was sort of spying on him. But then we found out that it was Rihanna spying and telling Neogi everything, not the slave. So why the hell was this? Was it just a red herring? It's just weird. There was no resolution at all. So the things that sort of fell flat for me was Estrus's death. Is he dead? We assume he's dead, but then he's an Illithid. I don't know the bio makeup of an Illithid. You know, maybe they can fall from great heights and survive. I mean, he certainly has magic, so maybe he's a magic user and he can survive with a featherfall spell. You know, pull a little fizzband out of his ass. A little bit weird, right? Teldin, by this third book, he's got to be a little bit wiser, right? To everything. He has to stop trusting every single person he comes across, because even when it's written like Teldin's not sure about this, the next sentence he's like giving him his whole life story and he's being super trusting and buddy with everyone. You know, there's a lot of really great bonding writing and some sort of exposition about spacefaring and Spelljammer itself. So I think the strength of this book is sort of helping the reader wrap their head around what Spelljammer is as a campaign setting. Because they got to remember, this is brand new. When this was released, Spelljammer had only been out for a little while. You know, and it was a brand new campaign world that came out. So it came out the same time that Talada's, the Time of the Dragon box set came out. So it was a brand new campaign setting. They had to do the novels like they did with Dragonlance in order to explain the setting to not just potential gamers, but also, you know, nonfiction, fiction readers, nonfiction, fiction readers and fantasy fans. And so that's what that book was all about. You know, the Dragonlance one, TSR at the time was having great success with Dragonlance in first edition. They were moving over to second edition. Second edition was just released when they started doing that brainstorming session with the Taladas and the Spelljammer box sets. And so they had to find a way of connecting the two. They had Krynnspace. Dragonlance was doing great with all their Heroes of the Lands box set and all of their game supplements and adventures and stuff. So this was just a way of sort of getting an existing fan base into a new campaign setting and explaining it all. They could have left off an entire Forgotten Realms reference and it would not have changed one word of the book. I mean, it had no bearing on anything. So I don't know why they included that. It was really, really strange to me. Again, I can't help but like Teldin, though. How can you not like Captain Kirk? That's what this guy is turning into. You know, the first book, it was that elven first mate, actually. And in this one, it was Rihanna, the space messenger. I mean, who's going to be the girl in the third book? There's got to be one. Here's what I would like. This is my speculation for the third book. Hey, Solid Crumbie. Haha. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, it is a pretty good ending, actually. I wouldn't mind trying out a Spelljammer game, to be honest. I'd like to keep it within Krynnspace because I like Krynn. I like Dragonlance, but we could totally do it. Okay, so what I'd like out of the next book, I have no idea what the synopsis is of the next book. I have ordered it. It is coming, but the next Dragonlance series of books I'm going to read are the Raceland trilogy, or the Raceland books. So it's going to be Brothers Majir and I got them on the shelf somewhere, and I can't remember what it is. But anyway, it's him taking the test and him and his brother being sellswords. And then after those, I'm going to do the Taladas trilogy of books, which is I love revisiting because I enjoyed those thoroughly the first time I read them. Soulforge, thank you, Benjamin, and thanks for joining live, by the way. So those are the next ones that are coming up. So look forward to that. So again, my point is that I don't know what the synopsis of this third book, but I kind of want to see him hook up with an Illithid woman. Now, here's the deal. Illithids are asexual. This was explained in this book. So Estrus is saying we don't have sex like you guys have sex, meaning gender. If we want to have a child, we just have a child. Which really reminded me of the old sci-fi film Enemy Mine, which was great back in the day. I own it. I still love it. It's a great sci-fi film. But it really reminded me of that. So here's what I'd like. I want an Illithid to identify as a female, and I want Teldin to hook up with her scaly or tentacly face, and them to have a little baby. Have a little space baby. Would it be half human or half Illithid, or I don't know. Enemy Mine was dope, dude. I still love that show. Anyway, also, dude, the 80s had some great sci-fi. I don't want to get on a tangent here. 80s sci-fi was phenomenal. Okay, anyway, that is it for my review of Into the Void by Nigel Findley. What do you think of the Spelljammer campaign world? Does this novel feel true to the Forgotten Realms as the first novel did for Dragonlance for you? You can always email me at info@dlsaga.com or leave a comment below. I would like to take a moment and remind you guys to please, if you're not already, subscribe to this YouTube channel, click the like button, and leave a comment. It all goes to help let other Dragonlance fans find out about this channel. And really, that's all it is. It's exposure, and that's one really helpful way that you can contribute to this channel. Again, this channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga. I thank you for joining me in that celebration. My name is Adam. Until next time, Slàinte Lou Gossett Jr. I still do. Ever since Iron Eagle. Remember Iron Eagle?